The pilgrimage I made in 48 was, of course, very different from the one I made outwardly. It is very different from the one I made in 76. I was teaching at the University of Cairo. It was called the University of Fuad the First at that time. And I was there till 52. And in 48, I realized that there was every year a group of people went from the university on the pilgrimage. There were the teachers, some undergraduates at the university, and some servants, the university servants, as they said in Cairo, asatiza, talaba, and farashin. We went by train to the port, and then we went by boat down the Red Sea to Jeddah. It took 4 days. In those days, the kisveh was woven in Egypt, a tradition from the Middle Ages. Actually, we were on the boat with the kisveh. The kisveh was on our boat being brought to Jeddah. What was very impressive, I remember, on the boat going down the Red Sea was when we were told tonight we passed a certain point, you must all go into ihram. That is, you must you must enter into the pilgrimage, which you do by a special. You have to make a prayer and you have to put on pilgrim's dress. It was exceedingly impressive after that day how people were changed. Everybody's life was changed. You see, there are certain rules for the pilgrimage. You not only have to wear special dress, but there are also other rules which are not absolute, but you have to. It does affect one's behavior. You have to keep a guard on your tongue. You're allowed to speak, but you're not allowed to hold long conversations. And above all, you have to avoid speaking angrily to anybody. You have to think of spiritual things. You have to think of death. I said to my wife, you know, these people, it's like as if they became Sufis just for the period of the pilgrimage. That's what the impression we had. Their lives were changed. They were really serious people thinking about heaven, about God, and talking in the same way. It was really a wonderful experience that, to be again with these transformed people on the boat. It was a help, a spiritual help to us. When we got to Jeddah, there was quite a rough sea. I remember that it must have been a terrible experience for the Egyptian fellahin women, that is, peasant women, some of them very large and unaccustomed to going out even much, and very unaccustomed to walking. It was too rough, the sea, for the boat to go properly into the harbour. There wasn't a proper harbour at Jeddah as there is today. And so little boats were sent out to the big boat which we were on. These women had to climb down a rope ladder and get out or step off the ladder in onto a little boat which was going up and down in the waves. It must have been a death in life for them. They were all saying afterwards that should bring us a good reward, a better reward for the pilgrimage. As English people, my wife and I, they wanted to make sure that we were really Muslims, because we had certificates. We'd entered Islam, both of us, 10 years previously, but they didn't pay any attention to certificates of Islam. They said, no, we want to examine you. So we had to wait in Jeddah till they could collect 3 elderly men who asked us questions about Islam to see whether we really were Muslims, and then we were allowed to go. They asked us very simple questions like, how many prayers are there in the day, for example, and how many raka'at do you have to pray in the afternoon prayer, that sort of thing, you see. And can you recite the Surah Al-Fatiha? Very simple questions. They said afterwards, these old men, we congratulate you on your Islam. And I was by that time rather annoyed, and I said, and I congratulate you on your Islam. They said as though I had just entered Islam because of their approval, so to speak, that they had brought us into Islam at that moment, whereas I'd already been in Islam for 10 years. It was embarrassing because they kept all the people that were with us, all the Egyptians who were with us, had to wait for us. And then we arrived at the Haram in Mecca about 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, the experience of going to the Kaabah in the middle of the night, it was, of course, very, very different from what it is today. At night we couldn't see very clearly what we could see in the day, but we made the Tawaf round the Kaaba. It was the first year that there was electricity in Saudi Arabia, and there was only electricity in Mecca and in Medina. Outside, there was practically no electricity at all. So we were spared the torment of microphones. At that time, the Haram was surrounded by a low wall with 19 gates in it, and from every direction as you approached, you could plainly see the Kaaba, and the wall was low out of respect for the Kaaba, so that, and the buildings round the Haram are all fairly low buildings, again out of respect for the Kaaba, so that it should be the highest building in that part of Mecca. I hadn't realized, as I do now, that Abraham must have proclaimed the pilgrimage, alayhi salam, about 4,000 years ago. That is 1,000 years before the temple of the Jews was built. The Quran insists, of course, that Mecca is the oldest house, the Kaaba is the oldest house made for men, the oldest tabernacle. And what is not generally known is that Mecca is mentioned